Hello, I'm Kimberly Henry, and this is Living the Good Life. In this series, we'll feature conversations around ways to embrace the goodness of life and take a big, juicy bite out of it. Food for the soul and the funny bone. Learn to give more time to yourself, become a better friend, lead an amazing life, and how to tell the best joke at the party. Living the good life can mean different things to different people. Whatever it is for you, I hope you'll find some inspiration here to live your most joyful, authentic life. Now, on to today's conversation. So, have you ever looked at your life, checked off all the boxes of success, and quietly thought to yourself, is this it? Our guest today spent nearly 2 decades leading multimillion-dollar campaigns, rubbing shoulders with incredibly accomplished women who were winning by every outside measure, but privately second guessing their next move. She realized that so many of us are trapped performing a life that looks great on paper instead of building one that actually feels like ours. That's why this podcast exists, my friends. She is a speaker, coach, the host of Wait, What Do You Do Again podcast. I love that title. And the founder of DeFord Coaching and Consulting. Please welcome Meghan DeFord.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
I'm so glad to have you. And thank you for, connecting because we have a similar mission here in
Yes.
helping people really understand that it's not it,
Yes.
right? There's something under the surface. So what does that look like for you? How does that show up when you're talking to people in everyday life and you kind of clue in that things maybe could change for them?
Yeah, I think oftentimes it shows up when that first question we always ask each other. And I think we did that right before we started recording, like, oh, how are you? And what does
Yes.
everybody say?
Fine.
Fine,
I'm
I'm
great.
good. And then it goes into, the generic of like either weather or how work's going or the kids are fine. And you're just giving these sort of very generic surface level answers.
Mhm.
And people don't often say like, actually, what, things have been really difficult, or I'm really excited because I'm working on this specific project and it's been a passion of mine, or whatever. Like when we
Mhm.
start giving those sort of generic answers and we're just in the hamster wheel of life, right? It shows up a lot there. Or the other thing that I see a lot is people talking about like, oh, good, we're looking at buying a new home. Oh, good, we're looking at the next thing, the vacation, whatever it is, the next. And it tends to be pretty, what's the word that I'm looking for? Oh my God, why am I blanking on this word? It tends to be, very consumer based, so to speak, right?
Gotcha.
Um,
Okay.
and that's something that is always really fascinating to me as well. Like it's always about that next thing, not about like how you're actually feeling or what you're interested in or what you're reading or what you recently discovered. And I think this is so common, right? And we all do it. So I see that showing up a lot sort of in day-to-day life. And then with my clients, it's that feeling, and it's sort of an expansion of this, that feeling that like, is this it? Like, I know that there's more, and
Mhm.
nothing's necessarily wrong with my life, but like, is this my life? I always think about the talking heads. I feel like we're sort of around the same age where it's like, this is not my beautiful house. This is not my
Oh my
beautiful
goodness.
wife. Like, what?
Right?
You know? And so it's
Absolutely.
almost like that internal knowing, of like, not necessarily wrong, but there is more, and a vacation or a spa day or a new house, all of those things wonderful, is not going to fix it, right?
Right.
And just that feeling of longing.
Right. Right, right, right. Did you go through a sort of transition like that for yourself?
Yes, absolutely. But it sort of showed up in a different way. So was really, really career driven. And I wouldn't say that I'm not ambitious or not career driven now, but it had become my entire identity without me even knowing it.
Mhm.
And when I was laid off from a job really unexpectedly during COVID, and actually a few weeks before I showed up to my divorce proceedings over
Mm.
Zoom. And then a few weeks later, at the height of COVID, was laid off over Zoom. And I had two little kids and
Oh my goodness.
was the primary, breadwinner. And I just was rocked. I mean, I just was like, now what? It was the first time in my life I didn't know what to do.
Mhm.
And I didn't even know what I really wanted.
Mhm.
And it forced me to really confront myself and who I was outside of the title and the role and the career. And that was definitely my reckoning, so to speak. And I fought it. I fought
Yeah?
it for a
How
long, yeah.
so? How
Oh,
so?
I totally fought it. I mean, I was definitely like, okay. I had a goal in mind of like, in the next 10 years, I want to be in this position at the time in higher ed at this school, and I want to be doing this. So everything from here has to lead up to that.
Mhm.
So this is what and like not taking a second at all and being like, yo, what is the universe trying to tell you right now?
Mhm.
Like, and the other thing sandwiched in between that divorce and layoff was a depression diagnosis.
Mm.
And I mean, how much louder could the universe have been like, hey, Meghan, take a beat? Like, but I fought it. I was just like, no, this
Wow.
is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to keep climbing. I'm supposed to have this title. I've got to have this salary, and we can talk about money later because there's a reality to bills getting paid and things like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
And I just went full steam ahead. And as I was looking at different jobs, and I had some job offers that I was fortunate enough to be able to not take, they weren't the right fit.
Mm.
Um, I must have either heard or saw a program for coaching. And I was like, you know what? I've always been really interested in this, and it'll make me a better manager. It'll make me better, at my work. And it was through that program that I really started to apply it to myself in a very different way.
Mhm.
But again, I was like, I'm not going to be a coach. This is for other things. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, and really was like, this is just for self-improvement while I'm looking for another job.
Mhm.
Um, and it took me a long time. It took me a really long time to embrace like you are more than your job, you are more than your productivity, and pause a little bit and listen to what the universe is trying to tell you and open your eyes to. And it was a really interesting time, that certainly rocked my world, but it was the first time I could be like the room mom at school. And it was the first time my schedule was totally my own. And it was such a dichotomy, right? Because like there's the reality of I need to get a job, but then I was able to coach soccer for the first time and not have to ask anyone's permission if I could stop working at 5 o'clock or whatever it was.
Mhm.
So little by little, I was able to really open up to the world around me more
Mhm.
and who I was and who I wanted to be. So yeah, that was really my experience through it.
Wow. Well, that was a whopper. I
Yeah.
mean, that
Yeah.
that was all of the things. Um,
All the things, it really was.
time.
All the things. And it was interesting too because, the depression diagnosis, which by the way, like, it was the weird like, no, I didn't think I was depressed.
Mhm.
Anyone around me wouldn't have thought I was depressed. One day I woke up literally and I couldn't get out of bed. I mean, physically could not get out of bed. I couldn't reach over to my phone to call someone, and it scared the shit out of me. And I was like, "What is happening?" And I was in therapy, and I'm a big believer in therapy. And I actually finally got, I don't know how long it had been, but I finally was able to call my friend who has dealt with depression in the past. I mean, I just started crying. I was
Mhm.
just like, I can't get out of bed. Like I physically cannot get out of bed. And he just sat with me. He was like, don't worry, this will pass, breathe, all of that. Um, and I talked to my therapist. My therapist got me to a psychiatrist, and we talked and we met and all of that. Both of them were like, "Can you quit your job?" Like, it was, like, so obvious to everybody, like, you are in the wrong position, you were in the wrong space, whatever, and I was like, "No, that's not a reality for me right now, that's like and I don't want to."
Right.
And then the universe said, "Simple." It's fine. We're gonna do that for you. Um, yeah, so it was a doozy of a time. I mean, I really resisted it, and I had to learn all the lessons, not the
Hmm.
hard way, but like the universe really had to set off some fireworks for me.
Well, I think that happens to a lot of us.
Yeah,
We we have an idea, and it's all I think the filters that we've picked up over our lifetime of who we should be, how we should be, how much
yeah,
money we should be bringing in,
right,
and all
right.
of the things. And for some strange reason, maybe you've seen this as well, particularly women, not always,
Mhm.
we put our job bringing the money in, what everybody else needs above and beyond what we would like, the relationships we would like to have with our family, the soccer practices we want to go
Right.
to, all the things. Um, why do we do that? Any idea?
Yeah, I mean, I work specifically with women, individually and in groups, and women in our society, and I've only lived in the US, so I can only speak to living in the United States, but we are taught from a very young age as women that our worth is wrapped up in how productive we can be for other people. It's not about us. We are often taught that we are selfish to put ourselves first,
Hmm.
and we are sold tropes, frankly. And it's very not to go into like Barbie monologue, but like it's very impossible to be a woman in our society, right? You need to perform for everybody else. You can be anything you want, but you can't be too successful. And if you decide to have kids, you need to be there for your kids all the time and everything, and also for work and also for your partner. By the way, you should be married. And if you don't have kids, well, what's wrong with you? You're a woman. Why don't you want kids? I mean, and
Hmm.
it goes on and on and on. And even those of us who were raised perhaps with more options and choice and vision of um, getting out of that sort of patriarchal view, frankly, um, we are in a system, and there's nothing wrong with this. Our educational system is you got to perform. You have a syllabus, you've got to get A's, you've got to get, high marks, you've got to get high test scores so that you can go to college. And why are you going to college? Because you need to get a good job. Why are you getting a good job? So you can get the salary and you can have the house, and the vacations, and right? And it keeps going on and on and on. And it feels good to achieve. And it feels
Hmm.
good when other people are saying, you're a special cupcake and you're
Yes.
in,
It
and like,
does.
yeah, and for many of us too, like I love learning. Like I look back and like I wish I could just learn constant, right? Like I wish I could just be in college nonstop.
Hmm.
It's just
Hmm.
awesome. You're just around people learning and expanding your capacity for different viewpoints and thoughts, and like it's awesome. So it feels really good, but within that we're not stopping and thinking about what do you want and how do you want to live? Why is this important to you?
Hmm.
And unfortunately, and again, I can't speak to men. I think men fall into this as well. But I think for women, we are just not taught to stop and think about what is important to us and how we want to live, and really getting in touch. A lot of the work that I do is getting in touch with your values and letting your values be your compass.
Hmm.
um, and we don't necessarily have to be on this imaginary timeline that we put ourselves on. God forbid you don't go to college at 18, like your life's going to be ruined, which cracks me up now. I'm
Right.
like, oh my God, like um, and we all have our different paths and our different journeys, but that is the thing that comes back over and over. And I saw it in my career where, I would I worked with a lot of C-suite executives, majority were men. And what was really fascinating is the men loved that I had kids and was ambitious. Like they loved it. And they never questioned me. They never were like, well, who's watching your kids or do you miss them or whatever? They were just like, awesome. And then we got down to business. A lot of the women that I dealt with, or interacted with, dealt sounds so like combative. But a lot of the women that I met, the ones in the C-suite had the same sort of feeling that I did of like, we're always failing someone, right? Like we're always
Right.
failing somebody in our lives.
Mhm.
And the imposter syndrome was insane. And these women were like 2 to 3 times as competent and capable and accomplished as the men who were in similar titles. And they still doubted themselves.
Mhm.
And then the other women that I would meet were always like, oh, I don't know how you do it, but in this sort of like bless your heart kind of way. And like, oh, don't you miss your kids? Oh, who's watching the kids? Oh, your husband, that's amazing. You're like, he's parenting, like. And so it's something that I saw throughout my career, and it really just frankly ticked me off. I was like, why are we doing this to ourselves and to each other? And many of the men that I dealt with just didn't have to deal with this. This just wasn't part of the conversation at all. And they all belonged to golf clubs and spent all week in the city at work, after work networking, and then Saturday and Sunday for 8 hours on the golf course. And no one questioned it. But women taking some time for themselves, it was like, you know, God forbid. So, it's really interesting how I saw it around me, and then
Mhm.
I saw it in me as well.
Mhm. And I don't I'm just gonna I'm gonna take one for the men and just
Oh,
say
yeah,
that,
for sure.
you know, they're subject to the same conditioning and
Mhm.
filters and everything that we are, and so this is kind of a societal thing, right?
100%.
And do you think
100%.
it's socioeconomic as well?
I think so. I do
Mhm.
think so.
Mhm.
Yes and no.
Right.
And I guess go a little bit further about what you're thinking there with that.
Well, I'm envisioning folks sitting there going, "Well, I have to fill this role because if I don't fill this role in my household, we don't eat.
Mhm.
My husband, maybe he should be working, but he's not because I'm working.
Mhm.
A lot of people don't feel like they have choices when the money is not there.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
can see at the C-suite level,
Mhm.
there is a lot different decisions or whatever being made. So I hold the opinion that even if you're in that lower income level and you just don't see your way off that hamster wheel you were talking about, there's still things you can do. There's still choices you can make, right?
100%. And I think what you were saying about filters applies to you regardless of your socioeconomic status,
Right.
education status, gender expression, whatever. Um, we only know what we know,
Mhm.
but we always have options, right? And the
Right.
options may look different. And I'm not vilifying work, I'm not vilifying country clubs, anything like that, right?
Right.
But I think so many times we are held back by all of the restrictions that we place on ourselves
Yes.
or that are placed on us. I mean, again, there is a reality to life. And um one of the things I talk about with clients is like, we need a plan that works for you. What are your non-negotiables? Like, do you need to make lunches every day? Like, let's factor that in, right? Like, let's be real about this.
Mhm.
But I think those filters change depending on your individual circumstances.
Mhm.
And I think they do change depending on which communities that you're in.
Yes.
But you always have options. And so many times I think we have perceived restrictions. There's
Mhm.
real restrictions.
Mhm.
And it could be a variety of things. And then there's also perceived restrictions that we sort of talk ourselves out of options and we talk ourselves out of even getting started with looking at some different options. Um, and so I think that when we can take a moment to step back and say, like, what is real here? And what is a story that I've created? And where did that story come from?
Mhm.
And I think that becomes really important. And then I think part of that story is in like, where did that story come from? Do I believe that story?
Mhm.
Like, is is that something I even agree with and believe
Mhm.
in?
Mhm.
Because again, so many times I think we're just like, have our blinders on and we don't stop to think like, wait a minute, do I even agree with this? And maybe the answer is yes, and maybe the answer is no, or more often, maybe there's parts I agree with and parts I don't. And that changes throughout our lives, right? And I think that's
Mhm.
really important to remember as well. At the end of this conversation, I'm a different person because we met, right? And
Right.
so we should be open to new ways of thinking and embracing change, even,
Mhm.
large change, like, so what I just talked about, or just
Right.
for change, right? Like,
Mhm.
you know what? What did I learn and what did I feel and what did I get out of being the room mom? Like, maybe I never want to do that again, and why? Maybe I do want to do it again, and why? And why was it important to me? And just embracing that and seeing how you are showing up as a new person because of those experiences.
Mhm. One of the things I run across a lot is folks who keep those blinders are more like locked gates, if you will,
Yeah.
where you might suggest, "Hey, let's take a weekend trip," or
Mhm.
"Let's fly to Europe," or "Let's go have a steak somewhere." And the
Yeah.
first response is, bam, "No, how are we gonna pay for that? That's not
Right.
just bam,
Right.
not even a consideration." Something they might love to do, but they won't even allow themselves to think about it.
Mhm.
How do you break past that barrier with someone?
Yeah. I think asking them, right? Asking
Mhm,
like, "Oh, okay. Well, why was that an immediate no?" And maybe
mhm.
it's something as simple as like, my bank account has $10 in it, right?
Right?
And that's okay.
That's fair enough.
Fair enough, right? Is that I think so many times we say no and it's a full stop. And sometimes, by the way, no is a complete sentence, and that's totally
Correct.
fine. But in the context of what we're talking about, um, I did this actually the other day, and it's like, okay, maybe I can't do I'll give a more concrete example. So, small business owner, all extra money right now is going toward the business, right? And
Right.
that's good and it's exciting and it feels really good. And so I hosted a retreat for myself, looking back at Q1 and Q2 and looking forward to Q3 and Q4. And I treated it like a real retreat, right? Like, I made an agenda, I put in breaks and food, and I got snacks and like all that stuff. And I really, really wanted to go somewhere and like go to a hotel and like do the whole thing. And I was like, you know what? I just don't want to spend the $1,000 to do that, right? Like, for a couple days, whatever. That feels just like, it doesn't feel good. It feels kind of silly, right? And so in that agenda, it was like, okay, every night I did something for myself. Maybe I took myself out to dinner, or maybe it was like laptop closed and I rewatched House of the Dragon, getting ready for season 3, right? And I
Mhm,
treated it like a real retreat. So instead of saying like, no, and like sort of, oh, this is silly, it's like, okay, well, what are the alternatives?
mhm,
So maybe if we can't jet set off to Europe, is that something you wanna do? Is it realistic to possibly save up for that? Or is the thought behind it, you wanna go on an adventure? Maybe it's going to a different neighborhood nearby that you've never been to, and, like,
mhm,
go to a local museum or a new restaurant or something like that. What is the why underneath of it? And sometimes that can help us, again, see the different options that we have. The why can be very literal, like, "No, I wanna go visit Paris, France." Awesome. And then the options are, "Okay, so starting where we are now, how do we do that? What do we need to
yes.
do in order to do that?" And while we're saving money for our trip and waiting for our passport and stuff, let's go to the library and learn French, or whatever like, there's lots of ways to make it exciting. Or maybe again, it's about that idea of just like, I need to shake it up. I don't necessarily need to go to Paris, but I need to get out of town. Okay, well, what does that look like? Um, and so I think that's the approach, is really figuring out what's underneath of it. And
Mhm,
also, like, why did you immediately say no?
mhm,
Maybe it is just
mhm.
a no. Um,
Right, and that's fair. Yeah,
that's totally
absolutely.
fine. But
That's
9 times out
fair.
of 10, it's not. It's like, oh, and then people start talking about all the restrictions. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're going to think about all the restrictions, you owe it to yourself to think about all the options. That's just sort of my
Ooh,
philosophy on it.
I love that. I love that. I embrace that.
Yeah.
So, how does one, once they recognize, I mean, oh gosh, I feel like I'm just grilling you on all the techniques and
No,
thoughts and
no.
things. Um, and I think we will have so much fun hanging out. But
Me too.
I want to find out from you, how does one kind of begin to flip the switch? How do you climb out's not really the right term, but when you have maybe awakened to
Mhm.
the idea that there might be other possibilities for you or that you want that, what kind of exercises, tools, conversations do you need to have to get out of the hamster wheel
Yeah.
and create your own life?
Yeah. I think there's a couple ways to do it. And one thing that I would like listeners to walk away with is there's no one modality, right? And not
Mm-hmm.
one thing is going to work for everybody. And that's the beauty of this work and the beauty of this discovery of yourself. And one of the things that I would really encourage is curiosity. Leaning in with curiosity will help you see more options and help you see the world differently than you have. And oftentimes it will maybe show you how much you have been coming from a place of judgment or fear
Mm-hmm.
when you instead lean into that curiosity. So I would say that. The other
Mm-hmm.
thing that I do with my clients, it's actually like the foundation of what I do, is getting in touch with your values. And some people sort of are like, "What?" On sort of two spectrums, right? Like they're like, "This isn't religious." No, it is not religious, right? I think sometimes we think like
Oh,
values
wow.
and morals and all of that tied together. Cool if that's where you're coming from, but that's not what this is.
Right.
Um, and then the other side of this are like, my values are. And I'm like, cool, what are they? And then there's crickets. Because I
Right.
think it's a feeling that we have, but when you actually have to sit down and identify your values, it gets a lot harder. And sometimes it's surprising, but your values are what shows up on your calendar. Your values are what helps you drive decision making. Your values are what helps you when you're approaching things from curiosity about how to move forward. And your values will change over time. This isn't something that's like one and done, right? Like you're probably good for a while, but it's something to explore. And we go through a practice, it's like 75 or 100 different values. I
Oh,
say,
wow.
circle as many as you think are important to you, right? And then from there, whittling it down to 10 to 15, and then top 3 to 5. And then I have them go through an exercise of like, when have you lived this value? Who are others that you value this in them? And there's a series of questions that we go through for each value. And what I have found within this is it makes every other decision so much easier. So when
Mhm.
you're going through this, I don't want to say awakening moment because it sounds so dramatic, but like if
Mhm.
you're just thinking about like, yeah, I do want more options. I do want to think about what I want a little bit more. This is about living with intentionality. That's really
Mhm.
what we're
Mhm.
talking about.
Mhm.
Um, and when you can come back to what your values are, it makes it so much cleaner and easier. Um, and this is a process that can be, for some people, like overwhelming. It may be the first time you're really stopping and saying, like, is this what I want? Is this how I want to move forward? Am I being the best version of myself, most authentic version of myself in this moment? So I have mine on a post-it note here. It's authenticity, adventure, optimism, belonging, and impact. And those have changed a little bit over the years. So it's kind of fun to see, again, as you grow and change, how your values change and how that shows up on your calendar. Um, and so I think that's a really, really great place to start. Start with curiosity and then
Mhm.
explore your values a little bit more. And it doesn't mean that, look, I have to do the dishes. That has nothing to do with authenticity, adventure, optimism, belonging, or impact, like whatever. But you might be able to like reframe it a little bit, right? Of I don't know,
Buy paper plates, eat
yeah,
out.
buy paper plates. I love that. You know what? I do that sometimes when it's going to be a busy week. But like maybe it's something about I always think about like optimism, right? Like I want to be in a house where I wake up tomorrow and like the kitchen's clean and that just feels so good. So I'm going to do that. Like that's taking, that's like kind of to the extreme. Sorry, of an example, like, just get the dishes done. Stop negotiating with yourself. But like I think that it really can help you think through things a little bit more. And when you do encounter fear and judgment, lean into it a little bit and ask where it's coming from and if you agree with it. Because
You're talking about self-judgment and
well,
and
yeah.
fear
Or if you're
within.
judging other people, it's like, well, wait, why? Like, what does
Mhm.
that have to do with you? Right?
Mhm.
A lot of times we live in communities where judgment is the guardrails. Like think about like how we police women's bodies, right?
Mhm.
And by talking about how someone else looks, ultimately what the group is saying is you need to look this way, right? And without
Yes.
directly saying it. So if you're thinking that either about yourself or others, lean into that. Where did that come from? And what is this trying to protect me from? A fear that you have, whether it's whatever it is. One of my fears is visibility, which is kind of insane when I think about my life. But fear of
Mhm.
visibility is ultimately an underlying fear of judgment.
Mhm.
And I lean into that. I'm like, who's judging you? Like, if someone listens to this podcast and doesn't like it, okay, like
Yeah.
that's all right. You don't have to be for everybody. But that goes back to how I was raised, of how you
Mhm.
have to be palatable for everyone. And I lived in a career for 20 years where I was a blank canvas because I was raising money for other organizations, right? And
Right.
so it's one of those things where, it's like, oh, I know what that's about. I can move forward authentically within my values, how I want to. I don't want to harm anyone. I believe in kindness. And if someone doesn't like that, I'm okay with it. Like I'm showing up as myself. So leaning into that a little bit when you're feeling that, especially at first, I think is really helpful. Like, where did this come from? Is this perceived? Is this real? And how do I want to move forward with this feeling?
Mhm. Mhm. I'm this is gonna be hilarious. What comes to mind right now
Yeah.
is, oh, I'll just be generic here.
Mhm.
Somebody showing up in an outrageous outfit the other day, and, someone I was with, pointed it out, and we kinda giggled a little bit, but then we both came around to how much we admired that person for being true to themselves and just living their life regardless
Yep.
of what we thought was okay, you know? I love those kinds of conversations where you can just catch yourself, censor yourself, and get back to what's really important to you.
That reframe is so important and you can do it so often. And I
Mhm.
love that you picked out a mundane but very typical
Mm,
example.
mhm.
Um,
It
I will
wasn't
never
mundane, by the way.
well, the outfit wasn't, but we've all seen that, right? It's like, whoa, what is that person wearing, right? As someone
Right.
who wears like black all the time. But it's some of those reframes where like,
Mhm.
it is one thing to be like, oh my gosh, that person looks like a rainbow. But instead of being like, what's wrong with them? Why would they think
Mm,
anybody like they look like they're from another planet or something? Instead, you reframed it and you were
right.
like, you acknowledged it. It was fun. And then it was, wow, that person has a sense of style all of their own. And we can do this every day. And that,
Mhm.
gratitude is, it literally will rewire your brain. And you can do this in little moments. And I'm expanding the idea of gratitude. You were giving that person gratitude for showing up authentically.
Oh, absolutely.
I will never forget the moment when I really started to do some deep mindset work on myself and moving from sort of a negative consequence, like acting so I wouldn't receive negative consequence, to really shifting that mindset. And I was cleaning out the fridge and a whole thing of grapes were just sitting back there turning into wine, right? And normally, as I clean them out, I would have been like, oh, it's so stupid. You knew you bought too much fruit. Like, why did you do that? And instead, I said, oh, now I know how much fruit to buy for the week. Instead of like criticizing myself, it was like, oh,
Yes.
you learned something and that's it. Right. And I hate wasting food. But, it's those little moments. The other day I did it where I started to drive out of my driveway. I stopped because I had forgotten something. And my immediate voice was, that's so great you remembered that. Like instead of like, oh, how did you forget this? It's the whole reason you got in the car, and really reframing that and
Hmm.
you're able to see the world differently and open up a lot more than when you're shutting down with that judgment that so many of us just go into.
Right. I think we've all experienced it just
Yeah.
because of the culture that we're raised up in.
Yes.
So Megan, I have no idea what I want to be when I grow up. How do I visualize
I
that?
think that's a wonderful thing. I think it's a good thing to not know exactly what you want to be when you grow up. Um, how do you visualize it? How do you get there? I think that, again, going into that idea of your values and what's important to you, what's working for you, what isn't working for you, and sort of doing that inventory as well.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I talk a lot about with my clients and in workshops is visualizing the future version of yourself. This is another way that really helps make decisions easier for people. So, you can have that visualization, and I'd be like, Kim, what is like your most audacious future in 5 or 10 years? Like, what's the thing that you don't even want to say out loud because it's like to you, it is so wild, right? Like it just, whether
Hmm.
it's realistic or not, like what is the thing? So I'm going to put you on the spot. Like, what is the thing for you that in like 5 or 10 years is like your, oh my God, that would be literally my dream?
I think for me, and I have this, I
Yeah.
think for me, it's a cabin on the beach with private access.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
where is it? Like, do you have a specific
I
beach in
don't
mind?
have a physical location.
Okay.
Yeah, that's open to interpretation.
Okay. I love it.
Somewhere my grandkids can get to.
I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
But see, now you're getting more specific. And that's one
Yeah.
of the things that I like to do with people is saying, like, well, how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? And maybe you hear the ocean, like that's how close you are. And
Mhm.
it's humid because you love the humidity, or it's cold because like you want to have 4 seasons, or, whatever. And it sounds silly, but as you walk through it, well, what are you wearing? Are you going out into a town or are you secluded? It starts showing you what's important to you. And then you start
Yes.
thinking about, how did I get there? Like, how did I make this happen? And all of a sudden, that really wild dream of yours becomes, oh, there's like steps I can take to do this. And that gap that the delta between where you are now and what that dream is, to close that, sometimes we have to ask ourselves, like, well, what would future Kim do? Or what would future
Yes.
Meghan do? And it gets back actually to the question you asked before of like, if someone's saying, like, let's go to Paris next week, it's like, well, maybe I even can, but it's not going to get me closer to the cabin or the beach that my kids can go to, like, so
Mhm.
instead of that, why don't we go to, I don't know, New York or whatever, like I don't, whatever.
Right.
So again, I think like being able to envision that and also to have some flexibility there, right? Because at
Mhm.
the end of the day, maybe what's really important, what's more important than the physical location of the beach and the cabin is I want slow mornings with my grandchildren
Right.
by this age. Okay,
Right. Yeah.
like again, getting into that core of intention is really important. And so I love people, you know, thinking about that. And sometimes it can feel a little uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And it could be a version of you 6 months from now. It could be a version of you 12 months from now. It could be a version of you 5 years, 10 years from now, right? But it's really sitting in the feelings of it. Like,
Mhm.
how do you feel?
Mhm.
And how did you get here? Um, and again, I think people sometimes feel like, oh, I can't even I can't even dream about that. Like, it's
Can't even,
totally
yeah.
unrealistic. And I'm like, great, unrealistic plus tax, like add it on, right? Um, and it's really surprising how quickly people realize, like, oh, wait, that actually could be like that actually could happen for me. Like, that is something that
Yeah.
I want.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is because we think so much about the cost of it or the logistics of it, right? Like,
Right.
versus, oh, I can, it's because I want this feeling. It's because
Mhm.
this is a version of myself that I want to grow into.
Mhm.
And within that too, I would say is like the exciting part is that you get to unfold within that and you
Mhm.
get to become within that and you get to enjoy the adventure of where you are now to where you are later. And maybe you're 3 years into your 5-year journey and the goal changes, and that's totally fine, right?
Mhm.
The whole point is just to soak up life, live with intention, and not miss a thing. What is that quote? Like, life is what happens when you're making other plans.
Yes.
And so not getting so tightly bound to the idea of it, and
Mhm.
really more about honoring the person that you're growing into and all the experiences and people and love and joy and sorrow and all the things that go along with it along the way, and how it's going to shape you, and how you're going to show up authentically in those moments.
I agree. I agree. And one of the things I often talk about is once you kind of envision that future or that goal that you want, and vision boards is an example of how to do that,
Yep.
then even if it's not consciously, subconsciously, all the decisions that you make, little and large, are working toward whatever that is that you want to create. And so you begin manifesting it, and we don't have to go woo woo about it. It's just how it's science.
It's literally science.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's your brain doesn't know the difference between reality and non-reality.
Right.
And you have just created a reality for yourself that you can see and smell and taste and touch. And um I am pro manifestation. And for those of you who just were like, oh, and rolled your eyes, manifestation is just a strategic plan. It is just non-corporate speech, right? And manifestation only works. And I think vision boards are a tool. I think strategic plans are a tool. I think there's lots of different tools. None of it matters if you don't take action. But
Right.
you can't take action if you don't stop and think about what you want and see it and understand why you want it. And it goes back to what we started this conversation with.
Mhm.
If the whole goal is to have 3 houses and a yacht, or, whatever it is, if you don't understand why, it is going to feel hollow. And that is the point of all of this, right? The
Mhm.
why and the feeling underneath of it and the intention. Do you want to be on your deathbed and people say like, they really had a great stock portfolio? I mean, no,
Right.
no one cares. And you can, by the way, you can have a great stock portfolio, but are you volunteering? Are you showing up in your community? Are you, how do people perceive you? It's, the Charles Dickens of it all, right? Like a Christmas story. It's why we love Ebenezer Scrooge. And
Mhm.
this is not a new concept whatsoever. But when we
Mhm.
can really tap into that future version of ourselves, that most idealistic person who's living their best life, why are they living their best life? How
Right.
did they get there? And then what do we already have today? And what do we need to grow in order to be that person? And if we end up in the cabin by the ocean, awesome, that's great.
Right.
But if it's about having things on your own time in a beautiful, safe location with your grandkids, that's pretty darn awesome too.
Absolutely. And your goal can be to have the best stock portfolio.
Totally.
But I think that the distinction is that's your goal. You made that choice consciously
Yes.
versus just jumping on that wheel, the rat
Yeah.
race, whatever, because that's what you think you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
It hits a whole lot differently, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you brought that point up because sometimes people want very traditional things, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're choosing it, right? And I'm a big believer in like do no harm to others. Like, I also
Right.
believe you shouldn't be harming others. That's sort of like a baseline.
Yeah,
But
we can
again, I
agree.
think that like it's one of those things where like I'm not demonizing anything. You want 2.5 kids and a dog and a white picket fence? Awesome. As long as that's the choice that you are making, great. And it's really interesting. This is not my house, by the way. That's this background. My house has disco balls and like Beyonce and like all kinds of plants and all kinds of stuff because I like that. It's part of my personality and it's warm and whatever. It's never going to be featured in Architectural Digest. It's never going to be featured in Town and Country. And that's fine. I look at those magazines and I think that is beautiful. And I guess my point is people in those magazines made a choice to have a style that reflected themselves. I've decided to have a style that reflects myself. And so we're not here to judge each other or, what your choices are, whether they're traditional, whatever traditional means. I think that's a
Right.
bullshit term too. But, whether it's more of the norm versus not, it's really just about the intention behind it. And you can change. Maybe my house will be all beige and ivory one day. I don't know. But it's what's serving you now. And I think that's like the really cool part of it.
Yeah, awesome. What's your big audacious dream, Megan? So we can hold you accountable in 5 years, right?
Mm. My big audacious dream in 5 years, it's funny because I was listening to the podcast to kind of get a feel. And right now, what it is I would love to have retreats for women. Originally, the idea was like buy a villa in Tuscany. Actually,
Mhm.
this is a really good example. This is like very eat, pray, love white woman here, but like I was like in 6 years, really, my daughter will be in college. She's my youngest. And I was like, I can go wherever I want. I can do whatever I want. Like, this is so exciting. And I was like, okay, in 6 years, I want to buy a villa in Tuscany or Umbria. I love Italy. Just
Mhm.
love it, love it. And host retreats for women and, like have some like community that I find myself in. Maybe there's some sort of tourism aspect to it. I don't know. And then as I was thinking, and again, I can think about my mornings. I see what my bike looks like to go buy bread and wine. I know what I wear, right? And I think about how hard it's going to be at Christmas because like it's Italian Christmas and not New York in the city Christmas. That's all of it, right?
All the details, yeah.
All of it, right? But what I started to realize was, oh, I want to live abroad. I want to live abroad in a place that I've experienced and really loved and would like to be part of that community a little bit more. So like Italy and Spain are the top two, but I don't want to limit myself. Maybe there's somewhere else I want to live. Maybe
Mhm.
it's California. Like I don't, so I was like, okay, you want to live somewhere else for a period of time that you love and want to explore and can become part of the community. You want to run retreats and workshops for women. But you can do that anywhere.
Mhm.
And you want that freedom of not necessarily having an address you're at 365 days a year. And so that looks very different than what I originally was like, buongiorno. Like,
Yeah.
So, so my big audacious dream is figuring that out, but probably living abroad
Mhm.
in Italy or Spain for a decent amount of time and running retreats and workshops for women to come to this work. And I would love to incorporate like music and arts and, agritourism and all of that within it as well. So it's sort of that 360, experience that you're having.
Oh, fantastic. I have a friend who is creating something similar
Yeah.
in, Arkansas, of all places.
Cool. I
Yeah.
love it.
I don't wanna say too much about Arkansas because it's kind of one of our hidden secret places that we go.
It's you know
So
what? It's so funny you say that because this like I love soccer and I love the World Cup, but like the
Uh-huh.
most fun right now during the World Cup is seeing visitors to our country experiencing like Arkansas or Kansas City. This country is massive and every state has gems in it. I mean, just beautiful, beautiful spots. So I love that. I love that they're doing Arkansas. It's a beautiful state.
Yes, it is absolutely, but you didn't hear that from me.
Okay. All right. All right. Don't go there.
Megan, anything else you'd like to share with us before we, close things out this afternoon?
No, I don't think so. This has been such a fun conversation. And I think if people are listening to this and are like, this is something that I have been exploring in my life, or even just hearing this is like, oh, maybe I do want to explore this in my life. This isn't like, completely blow up your life and start over, right? This is starting from where you are with non-judgment of yourself, that curiosity, and everything that brought you here is important, right? So you don't have to throw it out the door. I think so
Yes.
many times, like in Eat, Pray, Love, or, we see in the movies like these huge, like big dramatic things. It can be as simple. Can you tell I'm hungry? It can be as simple as just trying a new restaurant tonight. It could be as
Right.
simple as, my alarm goes off at 5:30 every morning. Does it need to? And if it does, great. If not, like, you know what? Maybe I want to get up a little earlier and journal, or maybe I want to sleep in 30 minutes and, take a walk after work instead of going to the gym. Like, just again, like, fall in love with your life, like, explore your life, fall in love with your life, fall in love with yourself, and really get curious about yourself. This doesn't have to be some sort of like, you know, changing everything up and throwing a grenade at everything that you've built. It's just noticing and being intentional.
But it can be. It can be.
Yeah. Yeah.
If that's
Again,
what you choose, right?
if that's what you choose,
If
totally.
that's what you choose. And failing, don't be afraid of failing, I
Don't be
think.
afraid to fail. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Yeah. I'm curious what you think of this. I was talking to someone else about this the other day, that like we have this expectation that we have to be good at everything at first.
Mm,
And if we're not good at it, then we're just like not cut out for it, which is like insane. Like, it's like totally a really bizarre way of looking at things, but
mhm.
it's through failure that you're going to learn. It's through making missteps that you're going to learn. So if you're trying things and it doesn't quite work out at first and you still want to pursue it, keep going. Like, the
Yeah.
work is the work, right? Like, keep going with it.
Do what you want. Do
Do
what you
what you
want.
want. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Megan, this has been a pleasure. I'm really glad that you were able to spend some time here today and love and value your wisdom, your perspective, your stories. Very good stuff.
Thank you. It was really fun being here chatting with you today, and we'll have to meet up in Arkansas. I feel
Sounds
like it'd be
good.
a really fun in-person conversation.
Be sure to check the show notes for links mentioned in this episode and join us in the Living the Good Life Facebook community for previews of each episode, the opportunity to pose questions directly to our guests, bonus content, and a community of people committed to living their best life and sharing the journey. Thanks for listening. Let us know what value you received from this episode and what you'd like us to explore in the future in the comments. And please take a moment to drop us a like or some stars. I'm Kimberly Henry. Let's get out there and live the good life.